not guilty. That's former President Trump's plea to 34 charges of falsifying business records. The maximum possible sentence, 136 years in prison.
Well, a number of legal analysts are claiming the indictment is weak. Trump himself has charged that it's a politically motivated prosecution and that his only crime is fighting to save America. CBN's Brody Carter has the story.
Tuesday's arraignment was the first step in what's expected to be a lengthy legal battle, with more than 30 felony criminal charges against the former president, who's seeking another term.
President Trump arrived at the sealed-off courthouse in a Secret Service motorcade where he was taken into custody, processed, and then taken upstairs to face the judge.
America first! America first!
As the arraignment got underway, demonstrators on both sides gathered at a nearby park, including Trump supporter House Republican leader Marjorie Taylor Greene. Inside the courtroom, with no TV cameras allowed, this photograph and a courtroom sketch show the proceedings. The president pled not guilty to all charges.
These are felony crimes in New York State, no matter who you are.
Trump is charged with 34 felony counts of falsifying business records, with a maximum sentence of 136 years in prison. The Manhattan District Attorney alleges he conducted an illegal catch-and-kill scheme, violating New York's election law, to buy and suppress negative information to help him win the presidential election. He also claims Trump made additional false statements to tax authorities.
As part of this scheme, Donald Trump and others made 3 payments to people who claim to have negative information about Mr. Trump.
Questionable payments include a $130,000 payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels over an alleged affair, $30,000 paid to a former doorman at Trump Tower, and $150,000 to another woman who also claimed a sexual relationship with Trump.
The fact is, this is an incredibly weak indictment.
Former Oklahoma Attorney General John O'Connor told CBN's Faith Nation the prosecution's charges fall short.
This indictment, it seems to have some sense of specificity with these 33 payments, these financial records that were not logged correctly, but it doesn't tell what the other crime is that is supposed to be hushed up. That's the key to the entire indictment, and yet the prosecutor doesn't say what crime it is that's being covered up.
Trump immediately flew back to Mar-a-Lago for a rally with his supporters Wednesday night.
The only crime that I have committed is to fearlessly defend our nation from those who seek to destroy it.
Trump's next hearing is scheduled for December, roughly 2 months before the start of the 2024 primaries. Meanwhile, he's facing other investigations and potential charges, including for election interference in Georgia. Brody Carter, CBN News.
Well, CBN chief political analyst David Brody joins us now. David, I spent some time last night actually reading through the indictment, and it's curious. They're all related to payments to Michael Cohen. And so there's some kind of retainer agreement where Cohen is Trump's lawyer, and it's actually a revocable trust that's paying it. And so Cohen issues an invoice. The Trump Trust puts it in its general ledger and then writes a check. So for every invoice, that's now a charge, a felony charge of falsifying business records, even though the Trump Trust didn't create it. Michael Cohen created the invoice. But then the general ledger, writing the payment for the retainer and then writing the check are somehow elevated to felonies. What's your take on that? And do you think this case is actually going to make it to trial?
Well, Gordon, I'm glad you went through all of that. I did also read the indictment, and you're right. I mean, this idea that there's 34 counts, there are 34 counts, but let's be honest here. I mean, we're talking about 11 invoices, 12 ledger descriptions. You just go down the list. So it's really stemming from this idea that he falsified a couple of business records, and then the 34 are stemming from that. It is going to be interesting. I will say this. I don't think anybody really knows if this is going to go to trial or not. I can tell you this, that the Trump folks, the Trump legal team is going to have all sorts of weapons in their arsenal, if you will, to stop this from going to trial. It'll start with selective prosecution. That is what they will argue. They will say if this was anybody other than Trump, this probably wouldn't have been brought up at all, let alone trying to shoehorn a felony into a state violation, which is a misdemeanor. So this is what Alvin Bragg is trying to do. He's trying to shoehorn a felony into a state misdemeanor charge. And I think there's so much more to talk about. We can talk about they're going to try to go for the recusal of the judge. They're going to try to have a change of venue. We can go through all of that. And a lot of that will be part of the legal strategy moving forward.
Well, let's talk about selective prosecution. I keep hearing a lot about President Grant's speeding ticket. And then I hear about Nixon and how he wasn't indicted. He was pardoned so that he wouldn't be indicted. Then I hear about Bill Clinton, that he cut a deal. Here he is charged with perjury. He cuts a deal, so he's not going to be indicted. But let's talk specifically about the 2016 election. You have the Clinton campaign paying for the Steele dossier, and they do the exact same thing. They don't record it as we're paying this investigator to dig up dirt on our enemy. It's recorded as a legal fee. And in that, they get a fine. Why aren't they charged with felony violation of business records?
Well, you're absolutely right, and that's the double standard, and that's why people are calling this the weaponization of the justice system. I mean, you can go back to the Barack Obama campaign as well. I mean, they paid a record fine to the FCC back when Obama was president for federal campaign finance violations, and that is in essence what Alvin Bragg is trying to ultimately prove here, that Donald Trump had some sort of federal election campaign violation here. Well, if that is the case, if that ends up becoming the case, why is it not just a fine like those other cases? So anyhow, there's a lot to unpack there, but you're absolutely right. There is a double standard at play, and that's why this is all politically, at least, to Trump's advantage right now.
Okay, how's this going to affect the election and specifically the Republican nomination? Is this actually clearing the field so Trump has a free shot?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is, at this point, become somewhat of a no-brainer as it relates to what the political implications are here. This is going to be a huge boon for Trump. We've already seen $8 million that he's raised since the indictment last week. And so we have a sense of where this is going. Look, anytime you have Mitt Romney defending Donald Trump on this, you have John Bolton defending Trump on this. George Will came out with an op-ed today who does not like Donald Trump, defending Donald Trump. Ruth Marcus, a liberal Washington Post columnist, defending Donald Trump. I mean, when you have those type of people defending Donald Trump, I think we kind of know where this is going politically. And here's part of the timing on all of this is going to be interesting. I mean, there's going to be all sorts of pretrial motions, Gordon, but this thing probably won't get really cooking, if you will, until December later this year, when Donald Trump is expected back in court. They're looking at a potential January 2024 trial. And boy, January 2024, isn't Iowa around that time? Yeah, that's right. I just checked my calendar. This just plays more into the political nature of all this. And, it's interesting because Democrats always, they were waiting for this day. They wanted this day to happen. And it did happen. The problem is you have to be careful for what you wish for because it really can come back to bite you in the end.
Any impact on the other investigations, whether it's Georgia or the classified documents, the Department of Justice looking into that? Is there any impact there?
No, I don't think there will be. As a matter of fact, the tougher case for Trump is the one that Jack Smith, the special prosecutor, is going after him on regarding some of these records taken, or these documents, taken from Mar-a-Lago. They believe there was some sort of potential obstruction of justice there. And they've got folks, whether it be the Secret Service or some other Trump employees at Mar-a-Lago, testifying on that issue. And so I think that is going to be the tougher one for Trump moving forward, but he's got to get past this one first.
Last question. Can you run from president from jail?
You can. Gordon, I knew you were going to ask me that question, and I looked it up, and I triple-checked my facts on this, Gordon, and yes, you can. If he is convicted and he is sitting in a jail cell, let's go there for a second, and he's sitting in a jail cell, absolutely, he can run his campaign from jail.
All right. Well, David, thanks for the analysis and thanks for the prediction of what I would ask. We're obviously going to be following this story. I think everyone's following this story. Absolutely dominated the news yesterday. It will continue to dominate going forward.